Hi everyone. So I'm going to be talking about three different topics today. So the first one, is it art if a computer generates art from a photograph or another piece of art based off of an algorithm? I personally don't really think so. Gonna throw out some strong opinions. I don't really think that a computer can make art. I think that art has to be made by somebody who is conscious and aware that they're making art. I think that intention is really important behind the creation of art. So it's the same kind of thing where if an animal, say like an elephant or something, well, elephants are really smart. I'm not really sure about that, but some kind of other animal, say it like is able to hold a paintbrush and it makes a painting and it sells for $1 million. I don't know if I would necessarily consider that art sometimes, because I feel like intention is really important, and I feel like you need to be intending to make art for it to be considered art, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna move on to the picture. So I can't imagine paying $450 million for something like this. Um, I think it's also kind of wrong to say that the artist is a computer. I think in this situation it would make a lot more sense for the artist to be considered the person who designed this algorithm to make art based on art, or the person that programmed the computer, or something like that. I think this is lacking a lot of knowledge on how to create a real painting, how to mix colors, how to make it a portrait. I feel like the computer is just basing this off of what it sees in other people's portraits. It doesn't actually have the knowledge for itself on how to create art, so I don't really think it's fair to call this art. And I think it's kind of a bummer that someone spent 450 million on this. I'm gonna move my screen so you can see that picture. Same thing with this. I'm not really sure I would consider the image on the left to be art. The image in the middle, that's definitely art. That's a digital illustration made by somebody. And then Van Gogh's painting is obviously art. But the image on the left is definitely created by an algorithm that's supposed to take the image in the center and use Van Gogh's technique and create a new piece. I don't really, same thing. I think the artist would be considered the person that created the algorithm. So the next topic that I'm going to talk about is, what is the point of aesthetically pleasing pause? So everybody has seen probably a Studio Ghibli or a Miyazaki film, probably. And I think it's really important to note the small pauses that Miyazaki puts in his films. I think they're really important for just appreciating beauty for beauty's sake, and appreciation of nature and things like that, like a ripple on a water or a subtle cloud or something like that. I think, especially in this Spirited Away film, if I can get to the next slide, it really helps to show the storyline more, and it helps to the viewer to kind of put themselves in that exact same scene and help them to feel like they're there and like kind of engage with the movie a little bit more. So it helps it feel a lot more natural, and I feel like that's a lot of what more modern society, like Hollywood films, I guess, I feel like that's what a lot of those are missing, are those little pauses in life where you stop and kind of appreciate nature. I think that makes it a lot more realistic and a lot more pleasant. So for the third topic, I'm going to be talking about, why do we rarely see sequential or digital art in museums? So mini graphic novels and other sequential art is not in more serious museums or upscale gallery settings. I think it makes sense to treat these two mediums very separately. I think it makes a lot more sense for traditional artwork and actual 2D paintings to be represented in a place like a museum and a more upscale gallery. I feel like digital art, while it can be considered like the same skill level, I think it's a very different set of skills. I think it's a lot more accessible for everybody, and I think that also makes it a lot easier. You can take steps back, you can change your colors, you don't have to struggle with the inconveniences of the actual medium itself, such as paint or your canvas or what you're painting on or your atmospheric conditions, things like that that affect your painting. So I think digital art is a lot easier to get into. It's a lot more open for everybody. And it has a lot more potential for everybody to get really good at. So I think it is kind of more praiseworthy and more, I think it's more deserved of a more upscale place like a museum for 2D art to be in. So, yeah, I think this is a beautiful piece, and I think it has its place. I feel like museums should kind of be more oriented towards traditional mediums and things that are created by hand and with your hands. And I think that digital art like this also has its place, and that might not be in that situation, and that's okay. But I think they should be a little bit separated.